If you clicked on this, you're probably bracing yourself to hear something you don't want to hear. Some hard truths. It's that push and pull of, I know I should do this, but I really don't want to, right? Because here's the deal. Sometimes that one hard truth or that piece of advice that we keep dodging is exactly the thing that we need to hear. It's exactly the thing that we need to tackle head on to create that breakthrough in our growth journey that we so desperately want. So welcome back to Mindful Actions. This is a space where we talk about radical self-acceptance through mindfulness and mindset. And I want to acknowledge you for your self-acceptance curiosity and wanting to step out of your comfort zone with me in order to learn and to grow. It's going to be a great journey. So let's get ready to do this. Okay, so I ended the intro sitting like this. And I want to talk about a few things that my YouTube channel has helped me deal with in my self-discovery before we get to the rest of the stuff, the other important stuff, So one thing that my YouTube channel has taught me is that I favor my left side when I'm sitting, and I have had some chronic right hip pain, and I've been trying to figure out where it's stemming from. And I've always thought that I sit straight up and that I have really good posture. I had no idea until I started watching some of my videos on YouTube or started editing some of my videos that I sit a little bit to the left side. So as you're watching this, if I adjust my posture, it's because I'm really working on this. I'm trying to correct this posture issue that has been creating some pain for me. So this is just one of those amazing things about mindfulness and self-awareness and noticing these things about yourself and being open-minded to fixing some things and to noticing some of these pains that you've had. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you have some coffee or some tea, whatever your pleasure is. And let's get into the real stuff now. How many times has someone told you just to be kind to yourself, or it's okay to slow down, and your immediate reaction is like, yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm fine. Or maybe it's the classic, you just need to let go. I mean, if you've followed my channel for a while, I've definitely told you that you need to let go, but I like to think that I give you some actual context and some actual tips on how to let go rather than just leaving you hanging with that empty promise to yourself. But sometimes you're probably going to sit there and you're going to hear, you just got to let go. And you think to yourself, but do I really need to let it go? Maybe it's fine if I hold on to this thing that is totally stressing me out because it's part of who I am. You're giving yourself excuses, right? You're giving yourself excuses as to why you don't want to deal with that. We've all been there. Sometimes I'll hear something or I'll think about something and I'll literally cringe inside because I don't want to accept it or I don't want to do it. But that's where radical self-acceptance actually becomes most important. Because here's something that goes against everything that we've been taught or know that we think we know about self-acceptance. Radical self-acceptance isn't a free pass to ignore reality. Okay? Radical self-acceptance is not a free pass to ignore reality. Fully accepting yourself is not always just about being happy with who you are without a care in the world. It's actually about facing the things that suck, the hard truths, and still choosing to show up for yourself. Radical self-acceptance is about being honest with yourself. It's not about ignoring things and just shrugging it off saying, well, you know what? That's the way it is. That's the way I am. No, that's doing yourself a disservice. You're still ignoring the important parts about you. And like we've talked about before, there's a difference between avoidance and letting go. You can watch that video here. There are times when you need to accept things about yourself and be comfortable with aspects about who you are. And then there are times when you need to do some of that introspective work and figure out if your thoughts are really true or if it's fear or denial misleading you. Sometimes it's about realizing the reason we hate hearing something is because deep down, we know it's true. We know that it's something we've been avoiding and we have it called out by someone else, and that can really hurt. So how do you actually figure out what parts of you it's time to accept and which parts of you that you've been avoiding? This takes a little bit of work, but it's totally worth it. So here's how I like to think about it. Anytime you find yourself feeling resistance or uncomfortable or you're overly defensive about something, that's usually a sign. It might be subtle, like when someone gives you feedback that you immediately brush off, or it could be a habit that you know isn't serving you anymore, but you justify trying to keep it around. Or maybe there's a certain version of yourself that you're holding on to because letting go feels too uncertain. You don't know how that will go. These are all little indicators that there's something deeper happening and that there's something that you're avoiding or pretending doesn't exist. Practice to help with all of this. Take a quiet moment, grab a journal, or just sit in stillness and ask yourself these 2 questions. And they will be in the show notes below so you don't have to remember all of it. Question 1, what's the one thing I know I need to change but haven't wanted to admit? What's the one thing I know I needed to change but I haven't wanted to admit it? And then the second question is, what's one piece of feedback or advice I keep hearing from others that I instantly reject? I push it away and deny it, or I'm defensive about it. Okay? Notice what comes up. You don't have to have all of the answers right away, but just by giving yourself the space to explore those feelings without so much judgment is so powerful. Self-acceptance starts by acknowledging what's already there, even the messy, the uncomfortable parts that we don't want to face, because those are the parts that we often need the most love and care. Those are the parts of us that you've been neglecting. And remember that this isn't about forcing yourself to change. It's about accepting where you are right now in this moment. And it might be something that you do want to work on and change, and that's totally fine. But I want you to recognize that it will take time. So the first step is accepting that it's actually there and you're not denying it. You're not being defensive. And it's just that it's a part of you. Accept that it's a part of you. You're not accepting and shrugging it off. You're accepting that it's there and it's happening. You cannot create change without acknowledging it first. From that space of acceptance then, and acknowledgement, you can decide what you're ready to work on and what you're ready to let go of. This part of mindfulness is basically that friend who's really good at calling you out, but in a loving, gentle manner, of course, because that's what we're here for. Imagine this. You're sitting there pretending you don't need to deal with something, and mindfulness kind of pops it up in your head, and it's like, hey, remember that thing you're avoiding? You keep pushing it down? Let's chat about that. It's not accusatory. It's not judgmental. It's just bringing the awareness to the front of your brain instead of keeping it compartmentalized. So here's your mindful action for this week. Do that journal or reflective practice that I mentioned earlier and pick one of those things that you've been avoiding to focus on about yourself. I know. I'm sorry. It's uncomfortable. I hate to make you do this, but I know it will help you move forward, especially if you've been feeling stuck in some part of your life. The bad news is that it sucks to have to work on and have to do. The good news is that you are most likely going to trigger something within you that's going to make you say, oh, that's why I've been doing this thing, or that's why I've been acting this way. It's going to open your eyes and your mind. Whatever it is for you, take a baby step towards recognizing it and accepting it. I'm not saying you have to work on everything surrounding it right now, but just start with, okay, I hear you. I'm going to try to deal with it instead of avoiding it. Because trust me, once you face it, you will feel so much lighter. I've done this recently, and honestly, it's what gave me the idea to talk about this here. I've had some things about me called out by people close to me, and some of it literally stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, whoa, first of all, where did that come from? And second of all, yeah, you're kind of right. It is something that I do. But when it happened, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I wasn't sure how to deal with it in that moment. And I needed time to pause and reflect on it. And so I tried really hard not to get defensive and to say, okay, I'm going to go reflect on that. I'm going to go think about that. And maybe we can talk about it later. And now that I've faced it head on, I do feel more peace with it. I looked inward and realized that I had changed part of me, and somebody else was around me was noticing it. And it turns out that I am actually happy with the things that I changed, but none of us were really aware of why I had made those decisions to change. And so I needed to look inward and accept it because I had been denying it for so long and I was having trouble dealing with it. And so now that I've felt all of this and I've explained to myself and to others why I've made this change, I feel so much more at peace with it. And it's not something that I'm defensive about anymore. And it's amazing. That feeling is amazing. So I hope that with this practice, you gain some similar insight into something in your life as well. Because the things that you are most defensive about tend to be the things that you need to focus on and deal with the most. All right, well, that's it for today. That was kind of a lot. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments if this opened up something inside of you and gave you courage to face something head on, okay? So good luck. I'll see you next week. And until then, stay mindful, take care of yourself, and go start working on that thing. Cheers.